Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the August edition of Dinner with the Devs. This is Dwayne Waite here, Senior Marketing Associate for Schell Games. I got some wonderful people here that dealt with the HistoryMaker VR project at Schell Games. And first, some housekeeping. If you have any questions about HistoryMaker VR, about Schell Games and the things that we're working on, and anything in between, please put it in the live chat. Our live chat moderator is Jill, our senior director of marketing. And so she'll be going through the chat, conversing with everybody and making sure that she gets the best questions to us for us to talk about. So the question that we want to talk to you about is how can tools and applications like HistoryMaker VR change how students learn history or learn, overall in general? And what cool technology would you like to see in a classroom setting? So please put your questions, your answers in the live chat, and we'll have Jill talk to us about it. So now we get a chance to introduce our guests, and we'll start with Brooke, and then we'll go to Mim.
Sounds good. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name's Brooke Morrill. I am the Director of Education at Schell Games. I've been here almost 6 years now, which means I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of really interesting, innovative experiences, both for the classroom setting, like we're talking about tonight, and for other educational and transformational purposes. So I'm really happy to be here and talk about this tool.
Hi, I'm Harries. I'm a designer at Schell. I've been with the company about 2 years now, and I was the design director on HistoryMaker VR. So excited to get to share a little about that process.
Cool. And like I said, Dwayne, part of the marketing team, and I had my 4-year anniversary about 2.5 weeks ago. So that's very exciting. Cool. So what exactly is HistoryMaker VR? Mac, if you're so let me introduce the folks behind the scenes. Mac is our tech producer, so he's making sure that all of this happens. Ali is taking notes and timestamps throughout the video. And like I said, Jill is working the live chat. So thank you, our marketing crew, making sure that all of this actually happens. So with that being said, now you know who Mac is, and he is going to play the HistoryMaker VR trailer for you all to see.
77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
Welcome to today's Social Studies classroom, where the virtual reality content creation tool, HistoryMaker VR, can enhance the learning experience. Students can immerse themselves in history while showing off their knowledge by embodying 8 diverse characters across U.S. history, from Ben Franklin to Sonia Sotomayor. It's easy to use. Students set up the scene and select their props, create their performance, import their script, and start recording. Export, edit, and share their performances with teachers and classmates. For educators, HistoryMaker VR comes with a desktop complement for classroom setup, management, and student assistance. Seamlessly integrate HistoryMaker VR into your curriculum with sample lesson plans and activities to help students easily begin creating their own personalized VR experience. Both students and educators were involved in the development of this standards-aligned experience, making it both intuitive and motivating. Create excitement, increase retention, and engage your students with this tech-forward tool. HistoryMaker VR. Embody history.
Oh, I shared the wrong video.
You can correct it. It's fine.
Hey, everybody, and we are back. So just to quickly say, I know whenever we create different videos, sometimes I share the wrong file. And the end note there said coming soon, but it is actually now out and available. So my apologies for that. So it is available in the Steam store, and if you are an educator, like Jill said in the chat, it is free for educators. So if you go to HistoryMakerVR.ShellGames.com, and there's a big button there that Matt created that said free for educators. Click that, fill in your information with your school email, and we will show you how to get a free Steam key for the game. So, why did the studio decide to work on History Maker VR? And I will start with Brooke.
Sure. So, well, lots of reasons, but primarily History Maker VR is a grant funded project through the Institute of Education Sciences at the US Department of Education. And we have been fortunate enough to be awarded several grants from this entity. And we were just coming off of a project where we created a very content heavy, very focused niche experience. And we were super proud of it and still are super proud of it. It's called HoloLab Champions. But one barrier that we noticed with respect to virtual reality and the required equipment in the classroom was that a lot of people weren't yet familiar with the tech and it wasn't widely available. So we set a lens for ourselves to look at projects that could be more flexible. And so rather than create something with very curated content, very specific content, we chose to sort of go in the other direction and create a tool that would allow students to bring their knowledge and be influenced by their personal interests to the learning experience. And so we were, inspired by a lot of different things that you can do in VR. But the main, a huge part of being in VR is the ability to be immersed and embody figures, right? Embody characters. There's an entertainment game called Mind Show that inspired History Maker VR pretty heavily because you're able to embody essentially a puppet character and do lots of cool things in the world. And we thought, I think we can make an educational version. And we did. So that, in a nutshell, is a kind of why it took the path that it did and how it sort of conceptually came to be.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, Mim, how big was the team, or how many people in the hands of? So, let me preface this: there was a phase one part and a phase two part. Mim came in on the phase two part when we really tried to make it from a proof of concept to a full experience. And so, with that being said, Mim, how big was the team, and how long did it take for the team to bring it into fruition?
Sure. So the team size fluctuated. I think at our biggest, there were about 12 people like actively developing it at a time. And then plus, of course, like people like Brooke and studio leadership and other outside experts that we were working with that probably brought it closer to like 15 or 20 at the most. At the fewest, I think we were at like 6-ish at like the very beginning and the very tail end of the project. The timeline, I think was around like November to April-ish, which would have been around 6 months.
Yeah.
So it took about 6 months to take the phase one sort of proof of concept to a releasable product.
Yeah, and that's not a lot of time. So
Nope.
yeah, so my question to you then, Mim, as the design director, like what type of design constraints did you kind of work with the team to make sure that we got a shippable tool and people would be able to enjoy it based on the original premise?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting project design-wise because the core idea that you were going to embody these historical figures and record yourself already existed by the time I came onto the project. So my job was a lot about what like quality of life functionality do we need in order for this to be polished enough to be releasable? How do we make it fit well into a classroom? That was really the big one. Was like, what does this need in order to make sense in a classroom environment where there's probably only going to be 1 or 2 headsets? And then also we put a big focus on accessibility. How can we make this as easy to use and as understandable and accessible for as many people as we can, knowing that there's going to be some age variation, there's going to be a lot of people who are brand new to VR, that this is going to be their first time in VR, and VR can be really overwhelming the first few times you do it. So it was really that kind of design space, more so than figuring out like what the experience was going to be.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So you mentioned accessibility and making sure that those who are new to VR would be able to enjoy it. So, what are some of the other features in History Maker VR?
Sure. So the sort of general feature set is that you come in and you can choose one of 8 historical characters that you want to embody. You can pick either a set that we've already made, or you can make your own custom set, which is really fun. And then you can get on stage. We have teleprompters that have some content that we've put in that you can just jump in and start performing, or you can actually upload your own content on a computer to put in something that you've written, and then you can record yourself. You can play that back and watch it, and export the take. In terms of like accessibility features, we actually have a pretty substantial desktop component. Since the game is on a desktop VR system, we can take advantage of the desktop monitor, so you can change your camera angle. We have actually an almost full set of controls on the desktop, so if the person in VR gets stuck, someone on the outside can come in and actually help them directly with the controls instead of needing to try and talk them through it, which is something that we're really proud of. We're really excited about how that came out. And we were able to add to that actually the ability to call for help from within VR. So there's a couple buttons in VR that you can press that will bring up a big red, like, this person needs help graphic on the screen. And then you can open the controls directly from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really cool. So, whenever we're creating all these features and pushing the game out and having it for education, one thing that I always get a question too, because I'm one of the people who go out and show the game to different conferences and events, and meet with these educators that ask me a bunch of questions. And one of the questions that I routinely get is, has this been is this evidence based? Is this standards aligned? And you know, if so, what was that process of doing that? And Brooke, with our being director of education, I'd love for you to handle that.
Sure. So, the evidence, if you're talking about being evidence-based, that is a term that a lot of people use for a sort of a variety of different things, but I would say at a high level,
Mhm.
it essentially means, is it based on high quality data? There are 2 really important parts about that sentence: the high quality part and the data part. So, especially in the age of nearly infinite access to lots of different information online, whether it be articles that are peer reviewed or not, or white papers or opinion pieces, it's really important to understand that an intervention comes from a high quality evaluation place. So, were learning outcomes measured? Were they measured objectively? Was there an experimental design? Was the experimental design appropriate for the question being asked? Lots of, you can really dig in, and I I would be happy to talk about that because I get really jazzed about that stuff. But to kind of back up to History Maker VR, I can also note that the high quality data look different depending on where you are in the development process. So part of also being based in evidence is using feedback from your target audience and target users to impact the product and make sure that the final product is usable and feasible for use in the target setting. So in our case, it was classrooms. So we got to test early versions and broken versions and prototype versions of this product with students both in the studio and in actual classroom settings and get feedback from students and teachers to make the experience better. So that's kind of the formative research, and then of course summative or evaluative research would tell us about the promise of the product for impacting student learning outcomes, or the actual impact on student learning outcomes. So we have a longstanding partnership with the wonderful RAND Corporation that has a branch here in Pittsburgh, and they are our research and evaluation partners for this project. We had a great pilot study planned for this past spring where HistoryMaker VR was going to be compared to sort of a business as usual approach to see how teaching practices and student learning outcomes were impacted. Of course, COVID messed that up, so it is on hold until we can figure out a way to properly evaluate the intervention, but it is coming, and we're really excited to see, what that evaluation shows.
Yeah, very cool. Good stuff. Thank you for talking about that. And why is that? Because whenever I get all those questions from the educators and instructional support, thankfully we talk a lot, so I make sure that I get my talking points from you for that. But why? And I'm also been quite a couple years away from the classroom, but you would probably know more than me. Why is that important for teachers, for educators, for instructional support to know that it's high quality information and high quality data that's behind the creation of HistoryMaker VR?
So I think that the simplest answer is probably to say that if you're going to use a tool or any intervention in the classroom, you have really limited time with your students and high stakes outcomes, because anything that you're doing for your students is either going to impact them positive, not impact them, or impact them negatively. And so you want to make sure that anything that you're using to enhance their learning experience is something that has the highest likelihood possible of positively impacting their learning outcomes. And that's not to say that there are, teachers who have been teaching for 40 years have tricks up their sleeve that may not be evidence-based, but they know they work, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, from an evidence-based standpoint, you increase your chances of impacting students broadly when using an evidence-based tool.
Cool. And I know, Mim, you have done a lot of work of trying to design sample lesson plans and a walkthrough, and we'll dive more into that whenever we talk about the content creation and working with subject matter experts. But I do want to move to about VR in education generally, and Mim, I do want to start with you. As a design director, you're kind of placed in this position of kind of advocating for VR in education, right? Because that's what you're designing for. You're making sure that it's accessible to as many people within a classroom setting as possible, or now virtually or online. So why do you think, or what's your position on uh, Schell Games having an emphasis of VR in education?
I mean, in terms of the company, it's something that I'm really excited about. It's part of the reason that I wanted to be part of Schell Games. I think, VR is a new medium. It's a potential whole new set of tools for a teacher's toolkit. I'm not about to say that VR can replace anything that teachers are already doing, but it is just another avenue and another tool. And I think one of the cool things about VR is that we're able to take things that teachers are kind of doing already, like having your students dress up in a costume and act out, a speech by Abe Lincoln is not a new idea. But now we can give teachers this whole new tool set to do it. They don't need set pieces, they don't need costumes, they just need this one piece of equipment, which right now is still a decent barrier to entry, but I don't know that it will be forever. And I think just it's just like a new cool avenue that can engage students in a new way. Like it's a totally different way that your brain engages with what you're doing when you're in VR versus seeing something on a screen, a 2D screen, or written down or something like that. So I think it's really exciting, and I'm glad that Schell is helping sort of explore that initially and get that ball rolling, and really moving that forward so that hopefully by the time it's easy to get a VR headset in the classroom, there's going to be all this really amazing content and all these amazing tools for teachers to just pick up and use. So.
Cool. Brooke, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would completely agree that the technology is perfect for teaching some things. And that said, it's not perfect for teaching other things. So early on, we're doing this exploratory work to release high quality, impactful tools so that when all schools have VR or all students have access to a headset somewhere, we've already figured out what does and doesn't work in VR. And so the content that they have will be, will be engaging and meaningful to them. So I think that, the gamut of VR headsets and capabilities, from something like a Google Cardboard where you can be immersed but not as interactive, but it's easier to access, all the way up to, an Oculus Rift S where you can be immersed, you can do everything in there, but it's tougher to access because of the technical specifications and computers required. So I think that the tool is amazing. The more we can learn, the better, and the more we can hone in on the appropriate use of it will just arm teachers for amazing learning experiences.
Good stuff. And I will add, I remember, I think it was fifth grade, I dressed up as George Washington Carver to talk about agricultural science, and the fact that George Washington Carver is in HistoryMaker VR just really just threw me back to elementary school, in a good way, in a good way.
I am
Because
officially requesting that you go ahead and create that for us. We would appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna need to see that presentation, I think.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, maybe, if you're lucky. Um, yeah. So, so we kind of moved on about what, how VR makes education more engaging, and it just adds. Brooke, you talked about that embodiment. And both of you really talked about how it could be really good for some things, but not good for everything. But whenever it comes to engagement, what are some things about VR that just other tools or other methods just can't really get close to? And whoever would like to start.
I mean, I have a couple thoughts. Part of it is on a very basic level, it's really hard to be distracted when you're in VR. Like a VR headset is very hard to ignore while it's on your face. And I think there's just a certain level of like you're in that space, and that's where your brain is. And you can certainly think about other things, but it's much harder to turn away from and get distracted from. And then just we've been talking about the embodiment, but the idea of like I love VR things that have you move and have you do the thing that you're trying to learn about, because your body kind of has its own memory and understanding of things, and being able to engage that is amazing.
Yeah, I would the first thing I think of when you say VR, I think of immersion, because once that headset is on, it's like it's sometimes a time warp. You don't realize how long you're in there. And then you come out and you're like, uh-oh. But one thing I would add about the power and slight danger of VR at this point in time is potential novelty effects. So right now, VR is becoming more popular, but there are still a fair number of people who have never experienced it or have only experienced it in a very limited way. And so the first time they put on a headset for an extended period of time or for a particular project or experience, it's mind blowing, right? But watching TV was mind blowing 50 years ago or longer than that, because I'm older than I care to think about. I like to make sure that we remember that it won't always be novel. And so that's why I appreciate our studios and our teams focus on making sure that there is meaningful interaction in those experiences and meaningful engagement, so that it's not just a wow factor. You get the wow factor for sure, but it's also very impactful for the player.
Good stuff. Yeah. No, you're right. I had a thought. Where did it go? Okay. Well, Adam on in YouTube. Thank you, Adam, for watching. He asks, will it be on PSVR? So right now, HistoryMaker is available on the Oculus Rift, and you can get it through Steam, through the Steam store. And so if if we get hundreds of thousands of downloads and there's a real need and demand to have it in more platforms, I think the studio would investigate it, and we would love to have that problem. And so with that being said, that would be sometime in the future, but right now it is available on Oculus Rift or the Rift S on the Steam store. Hello, I'm Ronald asks, what will be in HistoryMaker VR? And we've gotten this question quite a few times, even from educators about, I had an email exchange with a teacher making sure that we properly represented Harriet Tubman and the way she was born and where she was raised. And so let's clarify what the content creation tool versus the sample lesson plans and the sample materials that we provide. So Mim, how about you get after that?
Yeah, for sure. HistoryMaker VR is kind of odd to talk about in that respect, because in some ways there's a lot of content, and in some ways there's not very much content, because it's really a tool for you to make your own content. So what that means is that we have characters in the game that you can embody. Those are existing and set. We have the pieces for you to make a custom scene, or we have a few scenes that are already made that we thought might be helpful. And there's some content already in the teleprompters. There's a short sample biography of each character introducing themselves and talking about some of their sort of primary accomplishments and interests and that kind of thing. And there are some prompt questions to try and get you into the mind of the character a little bit and prompt you to improvise, or maybe they turn into a research question, but they're things about some of them in the present, like what were you thinking when this was happening, or some of them are out of time, like what would you say if you had your own YouTube channel, or things like that. But there aren't like lessons in the game. The game in itself isn't trying to teach you something. It's trying to give you the tools to explore and to make your own kind of thing. And so even the sample lesson plans are very much examples and are framed around give the students a prompt and a character and let them go, let them make a thing. So it's really, honestly, there's not a lot of existing content in there, because we really want to encourage people to make their own.
Yeah, and that supports our goal of creating the most flexible tool that we could. So obviously, we selected a diverse range of characters from US history. So we have that part. We have all the sort of TV studio things where you're creating your performance and customizing your set and all of that. But then content-wise, we wanted teachers to be able to post some sort of assignment to their students and then have their students, go to primary sources and practice their research skills, practice their both, academic writing and creative writing skills, practice their communication, lots of different skills and things that you can do while using HistoryMaker VR to essentially create and share whatever performance that either you want to for yourself or that fits the assignment that you've been given.
See, and that's why I really appreciate, History Maker VR and putting it into a classroom setting, because it doesn't add a like a handicap. It's like, here's information that you can use, but no, it's a method that you could use to display and to present information. And I think that's still really nice, because to Brooke's point, that it doesn't make research skills or even public speaking skills less attainable. You still have to work on that, and it still puts the onus on the learner to do those skills. So I think I think your team did a very good job with that.
Yeah, in my ideal world, every class subject would use this tool and just use it for their purpose, right? Like doing research
Yeah.
projects for a science class, but speaking as this particular character, and you have to do, present information about science as someone else. Like that's totally something you could do. So
And we've actually gotten some comments from teachers who see that like Mark Twain is one of our characters and think, oh, a literature class could totally use this to talk about that, which is really exciting because, yeah, I think that is the ideal case.
You literally took exactly what I was going to say. There's like, yeah, an English class could use Mark Twain. Like that's brilliant. And also, Mark Twain YouTube channel would have been off the chain.
I
Absolutely
would
off the chain.
subscribe, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he could have been like the first travel influencer, right? Just going down his little steamboat and talking about all of his, sometimes racist things. It is fine. Um let's see. Oh, I did want to put this to you guys. So, yeah, we've all gone through the school system here or elsewhere in the world. What subjects in school did you wish you had VR for? And let's start. Let's see. Brooke is thinking, so let's start with Mem.
Sure. Honestly, any subject where I needed to be able to think in 3D, I have a lot of trouble visualizing in 3D space. So if I could have gone into VR and either like seen the place that we were talking about that I was only reading about, or been able to examine this shape and turn it around and play with it until I understood it, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, I'm thinking physics, like laws of motion, those types of things that you could simulate in VR really well that you can, they were always cool. We always got excited when the teacher would bring in props because you knew you were going to see some sort of simulation, but oftentimes I found that I would have benefited from seeing the simulation multiple times, and that was usually not the case. So I think that would have been a really, really big slam dunk for me.
Yeah, yeah. I would agree towards the sciences, just having, yeah, being able to interact and seeing what was going on would have been very cool. Cool. So we are obviously, if we were in a normal circumstance, we would be in the studio talking to each other in our U-shaped chairs that you would see on our playlist with the rest of our dev live streams. But we're not because of what's going on. And so classrooms are getting, or teachers are getting ready for that as well, with different remote learning, virtual learning. I know a couple of kids who I talk to just through my coaching, that some of them are going into the classroom, some aren't. In Pennsylvania, there's the hybrid model that has gotten really popular. So uh how do you think uh okay, I got a couple questions. One, are classrooms ready for VR post academic or post pandemic? And if teachers wanted to try to implement History Maker VR for those who have the resources, like we said, that there aren't many, but for some people to have it as a option for their courses, How do you think that an educator can implement this tool? Let's start with, yeah, Brooke.
I'll wait to be called on. I think I think with respect to the question about are students, teachers, and classrooms ready,
Mhm.
I think absolutely excitement wise. Everybody's excited. Everybody wants to do something in VR. And it's all, it's all very exciting. I think the big barrier that we continue to run into is access to equipment and technical support, frankly. Even if every student like was one to one with a VR headset in schools, I think that the poor IT staff would be running around like crazy because there's always issues, right? And so it's just so new that I think we are not quite there with the consumer friendly comfort. But I think everybody's excited. I like the trend of what used to be a computer lab and is now either a multimedia lab or a XR lab or a VR, AR, whatever lab, where schools have dedicated space for a headset or multiple headsets that students can come use. And so in that respect, I think if a school has access to a Rift in a lab, I think it would be an amazing support for, using HistoryMaker VR as a learning tool for the class.
Yeah, and just to supplement that a little bit, I think there's some just like classroom management paradigms that are still coming to be too, because monitoring and like keeping an eye on someone in VR is a new thing, and it's something that requires a lot of attention. So finding the classroom setup where the teacher can devote enough attention to the person in VR, and potentially the people around them, and also like be able to handle the rest of the class, or whether it's a solo project kind of thing that you have extra time that you do that, like those paradigms are still getting worked out. I think they're definitely well on their way, and teachers are very creative and resourceful, and I have no doubt that they'll get figured out. But it's definitely like it's just a whole new thing.
So like you put one, middle schooler or high schooler in VR, and the number of things that gets thrown at them, the number of people trying to get right in front of them and mess with their, show that they can't actually see them, that's what kids do. And so managing that and keeping everybody safe is something I think we take for granted at the studio because we're so used to our, squares that are delineating the VR play area and best practices of not touching anybody in VR unless you say, "Hey, excuse me, I'm going to take your headset off now." Those types of things.
Yeah, that's true. There's a whole uh yeah, type of etiquette that would be needed to be learned with that. But like you said, like you both said, I think it's easy to do. People just need to be aware of it, right? So
Yep. Have procedures. Hygiene is a big one. I know you mentioned that, but hygiene is a big thing with something that's touching your face. So
no, I don't believe it. Cool. So we talked about working with teachers and finding out ways that this could be implemented in a classroom. Now, let's go a little bit further back about the development of HistoryMaker VR. And Schell Games does a wonderful job of making sure that we work with subject matter experts to make sure that the tool that we're uh, creating is actually going to be used, right? So that's a big thing. So let's start. I'll start with Mim about what the biggest benefit of working with subject matter experts is.
Really just having access to that experience and expertise. Like we talked about, this was developed largely inside of about 6 months. You can't get a teaching degree in 6 months. We don't have the time or the resources to become the experts. So working with experts gives us access to that information and that expertise, and they will catch things or suggest things that would never have occurred to us. And it makes the whole product so much better because we're able to collaborate with them. And we're not just relying on what I can spend a week Googling about history education.
Absolutely. And there are situations in which, there are different levels of subject matter expert, right? Like finding a really solid peer-reviewed article might be enough to inform a small project that you're doing, or finding a book that you're basing things on is great. That's all very important, because it's not based on our intuition, it's based on the actual facts. And then we're the game design experts that bring that expertise to bringing the content to life. We were fortunate enough to have real live subject matter experts the team was able to meet with, present everything from early art and design concepts and that sort of thing, to get feedback, because it's way easier to change early than to release something and have somebody say, hey, there's a problem here.
Good stuff. So along those lines, what I'll toss this to Mim. What was the biggest gem that one of our subject matter experts that you worked with gave the team while you guys were working on it?
So there's sort of two that come to mind. One is on the classroom side. We were really struggling with, how do we make this make sense in a classroom where there's probably only one headset, and have this be engaging for everybody. And one of our subject matter experts named Kelly came back and said, give them roles, put them in groups, make somebody the actor, make somebody the set designer, make somebody the writer, make somebody the director. And it blew our minds, because it is amazing. And the other teachers we talked to were all about it. The other was actually when we were working on the initial concept art for Tecumseh. We reached out to the Shawnee tribe, and they worked with us, and we sent art back and forth, and they sent references and corrections, and we were able to get to a place where his representation and his costume is as accurate as we can get it. There aren't existing paintings or anything of him, but we were able to use references from the tribe of like, oh, this is what he would have been wearing because this is what we were wearing at this time, and that kind of thing. And that was just an amazing process. They were so lovely about it. And it really helped the team feel confident and excited, because we knew that we were like doing a good job representing him. And we weren't just sort of making our best guess and putting it out there and hoping. We actually had all of these resources, and that was such a cool experience.
That's really cool. So Mac, if you can get the video, just get it ready. Not yet. So as you're getting it ready, Mim, if you want to, because you mentioned Tecumseh, we mentioned Mark Twain, and we mentioned George Washington Carver. Can we go through it? Because I don't think we introduced all 8 of the characters. We did
You're
it
gonna
in the
make me do the
trailer,
whole list.
but
All right.
oh yeah, I'm gonna quiz you. I already gave you 3, so,
Yeah.
you got 5 to go.
All right, so we've got Abe Lincoln, we've got Ben Franklin, we've got George Washington Carver, we've got Mark Twain, we've got Harriet Tubman, we've got Abigail Adams, and we have Sonia Sotomayor and Tecumseh. Is that the whole set? Am I missing
Nailed
anything?
it.
Woo!
Awesome.
Well done, man. Cool. So what Mac is queuing up, he is queuing up a video about VR in education, and why one of our subject matter experts, a independent historian by the name of Dan Holland, of how he thinks that VR will change the classroom. So Mac, whenever you are ready, you can run it. And we are trying to get that video ready. And Mac, just let us know whenever you have it running. And for my participants, I sent you guys a G chat, so if you guys could take a look at that, that would be good. All right, looks like
you mentioned about
here it comes.
how students can embody these characters by just being immersed in that VR environment. How do you think virtual reality? Well, do you think virtual reality will change education?
Well, let me answer that by kind of explaining a story. My father was a classically trained artist, painting and drawing and using traditional materials, paints, charcoal, what have you. And in the early 80s, someone introduced him to the computer and said, well, you can actually draw pictures using a computer. He was very transfixed. This is long before Apple Paint came out. So he basically wrote his own program using Pascal of all the languages. So it was quite a long bit of code that he had written. But he created what was called Panda, Painting and Drawing Access. And to him, it was just another tool. It was like, okay, here's yet another medium to create art. And so I see this as yet another way to engage people in history. And if it leads to them reading more or digging into a subject more through other means, even art, music, that type of thing, then I'm all for it. I think the more ways we can expose people to history and make it fun, I think that's the key right there to really turning that light bulb on.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Because I don't have double volume there. Thank you, Mac. I appreciate you getting the video up there. Yeah, so really enjoyed talking to Dan Holland about his experience of working with the HistoryMaker VR team and how he really just echoed what both you, Mem, and Brooke, what you both said, that it's just another way to get kids reading or to get kids interested in history. So being able to have another platform for kids to explore history is definitely worthwhile. So with that, there is that portion of content creation, right? So we have the 8 characters, we have the tool, you have people are able to export the video to export their performance to do what they would like. So why do you think content creation empowers learners? Like, why was that such an important part of the tool? And I'll let Mim start with that.
Sure. I think when you're making your own spin on a thing, it's a whole new kind of engagement and empowerment. Like, you get to tell the thing your way. You get to emphasize what you think is important. You get to emphasize the thing you think is funny. And honestly, there's a different kind of understanding that you need to make your own content about a thing than just to be able to sort of say back what the dates were or something like that. And sometimes it's sort of a hard to describe understanding. Like you just need the sense of a thing and you know if you have it or not. And content creation is a great way to sort of pursue that. And like you were saying, like I think it can be so much more motivating for a lot of students to get to make something based on their own idea, and then they can go after the information they want, and they can do the reading, and they can do the research. And now it's for themselves instead of for this paper their teacher is making them write or this test that they need to take or anything like that.
Yeah, I would completely echo what you said. And, to put it in the context of writing a paper, fundamentally, you have to do the same work, if not more, right? So if you want to write a paper, you're doing your research and, you know, creating your argument and typing everything out and all that. In order to translate that into a compelling performance in History Maker VR, not only do you do that research, but you figure out a way to present it creatively. Like, look at the wild success of Hamilton. It's a musical that's based on, history, and people love it. I love it. I really want somebody to recreate Hamilton in VR. I'm waiting till somebody does that. But if song and rap speak to you, you can do the research and turn it into that kind of essentially performance art at that point. So I just that ownership that students take, I agree, it's kind of intangible, it's hard to describe, but making it personal to you and taking ownership of it, I think is super powerful.
Yeah, I know just after watching Hamilton, I really try in different conversations and meetings if I could sneak in Hamilton like song quotes. It's like, oh, must be nice, So to try to throw that in there. But yeah, you're totally right. Um, Progidia Games asks, do you think it's best to focus on one VR platform, or should developers aim for more cross-platform solutions? Is there a universal protocol that works well? So, I'll start with Mim on this. So, do you think it's best to start with or the focus on one VR platform, or should developers aim towards more cross-platform solutions? And is there a universal protocol that works well?
Sure. I think this is going to sound like a cop out, but it really depends on what your goals are. If the goal that you're meeting is like that this one group of people who uses this specific device is going to be able to use and enjoy your application, then develop for that. If your goal is we want to be accessed by as many people as possible, then maybe you want to keep cross-platform in mind, and think about there's a surprising amount of variation in controls and power between different platforms. Um, just from like my own personal development experience, it's probably better for your sanity to focus on one at a time in terms of actual development, but definitely keeping in mind, oh, we want to be able to go to this platform. And personally, maybe I would, if you can, start with the most restrictive platform in terms of what you want. So the one that has the lowest processing power, that has the fewest controls, design to that. And then it should hopefully be easier to point to everything else. In terms of protocol, I can't really speak to the technical side of it too much, but it is true that sort of what works in VR works in VR. So there will be things that are intuitive regardless of your platform. Most, I think, maybe all VR controllers have some kind of a grip, that you can, know that someone is trying to grab something, for example. Those things are common. Or maybe you choose to go away from specific buttons, which we mostly did in History Maker VR, and our buttons are in game. You reach out and you put your hand on them, and that's how you press them. And it doesn't matter so much, for the most part, what controllers you're using. So it really depends on what your goals are, but there definitely are things that work across if you think conceptually. Technically, you'd have to do a little more research. I am not the person for that.
Good stuff. Let's see. So Oh, also, another question for you folks, and I'll start with Brooke and then Mem, because Mem, you're a little bit closer to the experience than the two of us. But Brooke, what's your favorite thing to do in History Maker?
Sing, 100%. Because I
What is it?
can't sing. I'm not a good singer, but for some reason, being on stage as someone else gives you this layer of it's not really me. It doesn't matter that I can't sing. This is just fun, right? And so I think it takes some of the nerves out of it. It helps that you can't see that other people are watching you. Uh, but yeah, I think that's fun for me.
Cool. Um, I have been petitioning, and maybe you get a chance to do it. I don't know if I get the okay. I want to do a Shell Games or maybe a History Maker VR TikTok of all of our historical characters during different TikTok dance challenges
You know,
with
I
no
can tell
explanation.
you, as soon as you put like preteen and teen students in History Maker VR, TikTok dances are the first thing they do, and it's amazing.
I believe it. I believe it. So yeah, yeah. To have yeah, that would be so much fun.
Absolutely.
Because I always go in with Benjamin Franklin just doing the nay nay, and so that's a lot of fun. Cool. So we are wrapping up, folks. So if you have any more questions, please get them into the live chat so Jill can send it to us. If so, while that is happening, we will go with our final thoughts. So we'll start with Brooke. So if you had to convince teachers or parents who are homeschooling their kids to try History Maker VR, and let's say they have the equipment, they have everything, so it's accessibility, availability, that's already been answered. What is your pitch for having them to try History Maker VR?
So I was actually going to pitch them on purchasing the equipment, but if you're going to take that barrier away, then I
Yep.
will say that, we are still living in a pandemic and students are either not attending real school in person or attending sporadically, as you noted with hybrid models. And that is a new situation, but it is also something that's stressful and will get stale over time. Likely, kids want to see their friends, they want to do fun things and such. So, History Maker VR offers a learning experience that's unique, new, quality, and gives learners a way to connect with content and with each other, because not only can you create the content, but you can share the files with your friends, like you were mentioning, like put it on TikTok or share it on YouTube, whatever. So you could even get the whole family involved. You can all play different parts and edit it together later. So I would say that the creativity will save sanity of learners in another 4 or 5 months, so it's worth it. Oh, and then you can download HoloLab Champions for free too. That's another one of ours, and it's free because of the pandemic. So then you're all set.
Good stuff, Mim.
I mean, I think Brooke covered most of the high points. I think I would fall back on that in a lot of ways, History Maker VR is like getting to do like a dress up presentation or like a game or anything like that. But you don't need any materials other than the headset. You don't need to worry about costumes. You don't need to worry about sets. You only, to a limited extent, need to worry about space. And you can do all these different things. Really, the bounds are your imagination for the most part, for what you can make in it. And I think it can be both educational tool and toy, especially while people are mostly stuck at home.
Good stuff. Well, thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Mem, for taking time out of your busy schedules to talk with me about History Maker VR. Thank you for watching the August Dinner with the Devs, the History Maker VR edition. Please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to our channel. We do Dinner with the Devs monthly. We're looking into other ways to bring more content to you. So please subscribe so you get that type of information. Next month, in September. Yeah, because that's what comes after August. We have a special announcement with Until You Fall. So we'll have the Until You Fall team there with us to talk about all things that are happening there. And yeah, thank you so much. And we will talk to everybody soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.